my attempt at this video, so probably go through a little quicker, a little frustrated, but that's okay. Anyways, chapter 3. Tip of the day is write down your questions. You can't ask questions watching one of these video lessons, but make sure you write them down because you will be quizzed over this material. You will be quizzed at the beginning class. So know what you need to look at further, know what you don't understand, and then ask me. Ask me in my office hours, ask me at the beginning of class. That way we address what people don't understand, and you guys can get a good grade on your quiz. So, not to beat a dead horse, let's get going. So, measures of location. Mean, median, mode, percentiles, quartiles. All of these are important. We have to know how to do all of them. Sample mean. Little x bar. So, that is the notation for sample mean, and what it is just the sum of all the values in a data set and divided by the count. So sum of all your observations. In this case, observation 1 has a notation of little x sub 1. Observation number 2 has the notation of little x sub 2, and so on. Just add up all the values together and divide by the count. Population means the same thing. The only difference is it's for a data set that is the population instead of a sample. And so normally that's not going to be the case. We don't usually work with data sets that are the entire population. That's not what statistics is about. Statistics is about working with data sets that are samples. So finding out what the X bar is, finding out what the sample variation is, sample variance or sample standard deviation is, and using those values to make inferences on the population mean. So moving on. In this case, we have a sample data set of the monthly cost of an apartment to rent. In order to find the sample mean, you just add up all the observations. So 445 plus 615 plus 430 and so on and so on. That equals 34,356 divided by the total number of observations, 70. That's how you get your 490. So for median, there are two different cases. One if there's an even number of total observations, and one if there's an odd number of total observations. If there is an odd number of total observations, the way that you find the median is you just take the middle number, and the value of the middle number is the median. In this case, it's 19. Now, if there is a larger number of observations, it's not so obvious as to what the middle number is. Let's say that there is 71 observations, and then the middle number would be 36. And how you come up with that is you take the total number of observations, 71, divided by 2, 35.5, and then round up, 36. So that's how you know what the middle number is in a larger data set. If there is an even number of observations, you simply take the two middle numbers and find the average of the middle two, and that's your median. So when you have 8 observations, it's obvious you take the 4th and 5th numbered value, but if there's more than that, let's say 70, maybe you have to think twice on what it is. So in this case, you also want to round up to help you find the what's important. And in this case, there's 70 values. Take 70 divided by 2, that's 35. That's your first number. Then round up. 36 is your second number. So what's the average between 35 and 36? And in this case, that's exactly what's going on. We have 70 data points, and so that's an even number of values. You want to take the average of the middle two numbers, which is the 35 and 36th place. In this case, both the 35th and the 36th place is 475, so the median is 475 because that's the average of the two numbers. Mode is the number that occurs, or I should say the value in the data set that occurs most frequently. In this case, 450 occurs most frequently, 7 times in this example. We are going to now move to the supporting document. And you can find this document in my links section, or you can also find it on Canvas. A word about these supporting documents is I've started to have this format where I have the Q and the A on some of these things, and these are the same, the same sheets. The only difference is one of them is filled out with the correct answers by me, and one of them doesn't have it's left blank. If you are aiming to be in the top 10% of the class, you probably want to look at all the different slides, all the different tabs in here, because they're all important. But coefficient of variation right here doesn't have a Q&A thing. Important, it's still in here, it's important, but not as important. And when we are talking about the quiz that you're going to have later, the quiz is going to be based on everything that's Q&A. It's almost going to be exactly what you're looking at in the Q&A tabs, but it's just going to be a different data set. So get this part down. If you have questions, let's talk about it before class or my office hours. But sorry to beat a dead horse again. Let's just get to it. So we have a data set right here, and we want to figure out what the mean, median, and mode is. Step one is to order the data set. Now, how do I do that? Select the entire data set, go to the data tab, and sort. Now it asks me, do I want to expand the selection? What this will do, it'll expand it. Excel notices that I have a value to the left of one of these values. If I expand the selection, this unknown will stay with this 44. So it'll sort it in the correct order according to this column of data, but the unknown will stay in the 44 spot. So if the 44 slides down here, then the unknown will be right beside it. We don't want that. We can just keep the unknown where it's at. So we're going to do continue with the current section, press sort. Oh, there we go. Now let's put in the order for this number 2 cell. We're going to have that equal to 1, or I could have just typed 1, that would have been fine. And then to put in the rest of the order, we're just going to type in the previous cell, which in this case is A2 plus 1. Now, I can copy and paste all of this down, or I can simply double click this little box right here, and it's going to slide down all the way to the end of it, to the column next to it. So that's what we want in this case. We want the same formula, and there we go. We can see that the count is 110. Anyways, so we can type in 110 here, or what we can do, which is probably a little bit better, let's put in the count function and select our data set. Now what you will notice in our count function is that we have B2, which is the beginning number in the data set, and then we have B111, which is the ending number, and in between is a colon. So the colon signifies that, press escape. The colon signifies that we want to consider everything in between these two cells. If I would take this and put in a comma, what would happen is all of a sudden now I'm just counting B2 and B111, which will be 2. It's not getting everything in between. We want everything in between, so we put in a colon, 110. Sum. We can use a simple sum formula here, and once again we want to select the entire data set. You can see me quickly selecting the entire data set by 1, clicking the first cell, 2, pressing Control, Shift, and then the down arrow key, and that will slide everything down until the end, the last cell, until there's like a break. So Excel tip, very useful. Put in the last parentheses and we're good to go. Sample mean. Now sample mean is, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Sample mean, I really want this in here. So this is our sample mean formula. And in this case, what you do is you just take the sum of all the data values and divide by the count. So that's how we figure it out. Sum of all the values and divide by the count. And our sample mean is 35.59. Now you can also do that with an Excel function, the average function. So we just type in the average function, select the data set, notice the colon and parentheses, and voila, same answer. Always good. Alright, let's turn our attention to the median. The median is simply the middle number. In this case, we have a count of 110. That's even. That means we find the average of the two middle numbers. So we can take 110 and divide it by 2. Geez, sorry about that. 110th cell, divided by 2. 55 is our first number. Always add one more to get I plus 1. So 56. Now these represent the two positions that we want to take the average of. Now the value, f of I, represents the value, the data in the 55th place, because I is 55 in this case. So what we can do is we can go and look for the 55th place, and we find that that is 35. Now another way you can do that is the Vlookup function. The Vlookup function is one of the most important functions in Excel. The way that it works is, in the first argument, you select what you want to look up. In this case, we want to look up 55. The second argument is the table in which you want to look up in. That would be the entire order and data table. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these into, we're going to add dollar signs to these using the F4 button once again. And that locks the table range in place so that we can copy the formula down and that range won't go down with it. And the column index number that we're interested in is in 2. Whenever you have an argument right here, like range lookup, that's in the brackets, that means it's optional. We want to focus in on this optional case because we want to always put in false. Almost all my Vlookup functions that I ever use, I use false. And what that ensures is it ensures that you don't look for something close to that value. In this case, 50. It doesn't look up for something close to 55 and give you the corresponding data point. It looks up for something that's exactly 55, and if exactly 55 isn't there, then it will give you an error. So, explaining this more big picture, Vlookup, what it does is it says you have a table, you have a range of data that you're interested in, and V stands for vertical. And what the Vlookup is going to do is going to say, oh, I'm going to take whatever you have in the leftmost column of that table, and I'm going to look for whatever value you want. And once I found that value, I am going to give you a value that's on the same row. And the position of the value that I'm going to give you on that row is your third argument. So it's the second row in the range. So specifically in this case, we are looking for the data point in the 56th position. We select all the order and data points as our range in the second argument right here. And then we say we want to look for 55. 55 is in the leftmost column. And once we find that 55 right here, we want to look in the second place. That's right here. And this is the first place. If we have 1 in there, it'd return a 55. Since we have a 2 in the column index number, it's going to return the second column, which is a 35. And false ensures that there's, we're looking for exactly 55. And we get 35. Let's double check. Go down to the 55th position. Right there. We go over 1, 35. And that is exactly what the Vlookup function came up with. So we know we are good. I'm going to copy that function down. Oh, It is 35 again. Let's double check that. Go down to the 56th position. It is 35 again. Perfect. And we didn't have to do it that time because we knew the function was going to give us the right answer. That's the beauty of functions. And so now we can calculate our median. It is simply the average of these two cells, 35, or you can find the average by summing these two cells together and dividing by the count of these two cells, which is obviously, the count is obviously just 2. So either way, easiest thing is to just, easiest thing is whatever floats your boat. So going to the median function, that's actually the easiest thing. We can just type in median and select all the data that we're interested in. Close brackets, and we get the same answer. Always good. Mode. Mode represents the most common value in our data. So we can just type in the mode function. Select all of our data. Press enter. 27. Perfect. So that is sample mean, median, and mode. I think that's good for this video. Your quiz in the morning is going to make sure that you can find these things. So thank you. To figure out the